What is up, everyone? Today we got a very controversial, exciting podcast coming to you from yours truly, your favorite brothers out there, me, Caleb, and brother Ethan. Ethan, say,
Yes, sir.
say hello to everyone.
Hey, buddy.
So,
Love you.
so today's podcast is about spirituality over religion and that religion is dead. Some of you might have seen the title and were completely appalled or kind of clicked on this saying like, I wonder where this is going to go. But Ethan and I have a strong belief that religion is dead because spirituality is on the rise. So what do we mean by that? We after talking to more people in my age group and as the increase in science and technology improves, it's not very common, or those that do are not very strong in their beliefs that God is real. And if God is real, that God was a person. And the idea that as we get more advanced and go on and are learning things like evolution in school as truth and theories such as the Big Bang that are more likely to be true than God creating the world in a week, is you just start to see why and how religion is falling and decreasing at such a rapid rate. And another thing that we wanted to talk about was how there's this weird taboo behind religion. You don't see a lot of videos like this, and this isn't even a common topic for people to discuss. Why? We don't really know. For some reason, we can bring up certain things in society and critique them and formulate our own opinions and push them on others or try to convince others. But for some reason, whenever we bring up this idea of religion or that one person's religion is bad, people get hostile, people get mad, people start war. And it doesn't even make sense. Another point is we are born into these religious families. I was born into a Jewish family. Therefore, I was told when I was a kid that I'm Jewish. I have to find a Jewish wife. I should be Jewish. And it is truth. My family was less religious, and my dad is, in fact, an atheist. So these beliefs weren't as strongly pushed on me. But I do know for a fact many people experience this. And it's very common for us to be told that we're born as this certain religion and this is the truth. And if you don't believe it, you're a disgrace to the family. And that really doesn't make sense. If you look at how many religions there are, how many people follow them, what they teach, it doesn't make sense for us to latch on to these ideas because we're told from a young age that they're true without even attempting to explore other options.
What do you mean by that?
Like,
What's up?
I'm saying that if I am born into a Jewish household or a Christian household, that since I am born this way, my parents are believe this, they're going to take me to church, they're going to take me to synagogue, they're going to raise me this way. And if I ever were to say, I actually believe more in a Christian belief or I believe in more of a Buddhist faith, I am immediately shut down or I'm told that I'm wrong or I'm disgracing the family. And that really doesn't make sense. There shouldn't be, again, this weird taboo behind these ideas. People get so latched onto their religious ideas that they go into all other ideas completely closed-minded and don't even try to wrap their heads around that. Did that clear it up?
If, so you're basically saying, for a more utilitarian perspective, that if we were all to not impose such um will on each other based on not what we want, but based on traditional value, then of course people are going to be upset or angry with with what the world is doing right now. And
Exactly.
it's not a surprise to me that, you know, like with the rise of Black Lives Matter, and then with everyone not everybody, with Trump supporters attacking the Capitol. You know, a lot of these things have to stem from somewhere, and it stems from when the time that they're born. They probably had parents who told them they're not allowed to be X, X, and X, and then end up being someone that they hate. You know,
Exactly.
all this resentment built up inside them.
Exactly.
It comes spilling out. Like everyone is hating on all these people, and yes, like these people should feel probably ashamed of how they attacked our capital, but it goes deeper, and it goes beyond that. Like it goes to the fact that I feel bad for these people because they've probably had no guidance as kids or horrible parents.
Hmm. And there's other things such as whether or not Jesus is real. You know, I mean, I believe that he was, but we'll talk about that in a little bit different sense and later on. But whether or not Jesus was real, if he heard some of the arguments that people were having now, he would be so ashamed. Some people will look at the Bible and take one quote and completely misinterpret it or take it as fact. And some of these teachings really, really made sense a couple thousand years ago, but they don't make sense anymore. A common thing, and also people decide to cherry pick things out of their favorite religions and use that as fact while omitting other ideas. Why is it that some Christians are so strongly against the idea that gay people shouldn't marry because it says that somewhere in the Bible? Yet, I guarantee almost all those supporters have sex before marriage, and it says in the Bible you should be stoned to death if you have sex before marriage. So people are now completely taking these ideas of religion that was supposed to unite us, bring us together, find a way for us to love our neighbors and be happy with who we are as we were born. Instead, we're taking them and now causing hate, telling people they should kill themselves, telling people they should hate themselves, and acts of terrorism because people are so latched onto their beliefs and refusing to adopt and modify their beliefs as the world changes. You know, Religion should not be so fixed. Instead, it should be a fluid, constantly changing, adapting, getting better, learning experience. But for some reason, we're so focused on it being one way. And no matter how the world changes, no matter how much we learn, we have to stay this one way. And it really just comes down to people being so close minded and forced upon their beliefs.
Right,
Another,
and we talk. Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Well, we talk a lot about the impermanence of life and why it's really not important to be okay with change because life is wiggly. Like Alan Watts once said, humans have been there because everything is straight. Nature doesn't grow in structurally in organized order.
um,
Okay.
another critique on religion is the idea that religion is not taught as theory, but as fact. We tend to latch onto our beliefs and say that I believe this and it's true because this has happened. When instead, we don't say, I believe this is true, but I really have no evidence to prove that. But because this happened, I believe it could be true. It's helping me with my life, and I feel better about it. But for some reason, we are taught in school that you can't say something is true, you know, but for
And
some,
that you have to be tough and you have to hold on to all of your beliefs because that makes you seem loyal. But
but
but is
again,
having a friend who's been mean to you your whole life something good for you? It
yeah,
goes back to you might have to cut out toxic things in your life. And now it goes back to the impermanence of life, of how everything is wiggly and everything is changing. And if you latch on to people and places or settings, like, every people are going to die, places will break down, places are going to change, businesses are going to fail, and you have to be okay with not knowing what's going to happen. And religion does not offer one that. It just offers it a false conclusion of what happens when one's dead.
Mhm.
And I feel like people know that.
Sam Harris says that religion is now, now that we know, um, we don't know that heaven is real. In fact, we probably know that if there is an afterlife, it's probably not heaven. Yet we tell our kids this, and he claims, I mean, it's a very hot take, but religion is now an excuse to not mourn for people. You know, your 3-year-old kid lost their grandparent and they're extremely devastated and they don't know what to do with themselves. What does mom tell you? Oh, don't worry, honey, you'll see them in heaven. And the kid immediately says, okay, and stops mourning. And I'm not saying that it's bad to believe that maybe you could go to heaven, but it's almost like an excuse to show us reality.
I totally agree. Like how, like, what's wrong with having feelings and being upset about something?
Exactly.
Like, it's just such a cultural thing too.
Right. It's teaching us that we shouldn't deal with our feelings. Um, and I just want to go back onto this idea that I was saying earlier with the acceleration of technology, that God, as we know it, or as we've been told in the West, is probably not real. Now, I'm not saying that a higher power isn't real, but we're all attached to this idea that God is this omnious person, almighty person. And the only reason that we say that God is a person is because the human brain can only comprehend so much. And we like to look for answers. And most likely, if there is a higher power, if it is something way beyond the human mind comprehension that hasn't even been created, no one has even thought of it. And that is probably what it is. Yet we are telling people that it is a person, giving them false hope, and that Jesus was a real person, which he might have been, but that he was able to walk on water. And when Jesus comes back to earth, we'll all know because he'll do some extraordinary thing. Was Jesus real? Probably. Was he able to walk on water? Probably not. Was he some guy that probably stumbled across a big batch of magic mushrooms and had a very intense psychedelic experience, had an ego death, and could only love people because he completely forgot who he was or had no external attachments and learned to live in the now? More likely, yeah. And people most likely saw this and wanted to emulate his practices. And what do? We create stories around it and to tell our kids. But for some reason, we've taken these ideas and made them completely fact. When in reality, it was probably people creating these stories based off of someone that had a very intense experience and someone that they wanted to emulate and blew it out of proportion. We also know that religions in both the East and the West have developed from other religions. We know that Buddha learned how to meditate from a Hindu teacher, and Buddhism is a sort of sect of Hinduism. And we know that the Bible was created or adopted from the Torah, and that the Quran was adopted from the Bible. Yet we just stop there. You know, we first of all, people wouldn't change their beliefs as we believe that more has learned, and people we adopted these ideas over. I mean, granted, it took a couple thousand years, but no one has tried to change anything since. No one, at least that I know of, has really looked at the Bible and said, you know what, like there are a lot of great teachings in here, but a lot of the stuff really doesn't make sense anymore. Maybe it had a great sense in the BC era or the beginning era of the Bible, but it doesn't make sense anymore. So why are we still following these practices? Why are we cherry picking evidence? So that just leads us to our next point, in that just because religion might be dead, it doesn't necessarily mean spirituality is dead. In fact, spirituality is more alive than ever. What is spirituality? Well, spirituality can mean a multitude of things. It can be this idea that everything happens for a reason, this underlying idea in the universe, and it's just whatever you choose to follow, I guess. But for some reason, if I were to tell people I'm not religious, I'm actually just very spiritual, people look at me weirdly. But I honestly believe it makes a lot more sense for people to be spiritual. And I guarantee most people are spiritual and not religious. What can you get out of
That a
spirituality?
lot.
Sorry, you go.
I like I like that when you touch upon it and you go, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. I think that's a really powerful statement, especially coming from someone who used to who had gone through bar mitzvah and had gone through the traditional Jewish upbringing, and now you came to a place where you don't have resentment against it, and nor are you cherry picking from it. You've accepted the stories, but you just want to move on to something beyond secular religion of Judaism.
Exactly. And um, it's kind of ironic for me, considering I was a very, very, very hardcore atheist. I had no belief in the world. And then I just started researching. And one of the questions that really started getting me thinking was, and I talked about this in another podcast when I started meditating, is we all believe that we create our own thoughts, or at least we think we do. But tell me what you're about to think. Tell me what your next thought is going to be. You can't. So that kind of just opened a whole rabbit hole of questions for me. Then I started asking myself, what is consciousness? What is this other thing in my head? One of my favorite spiritual teachers said when he had his spiritual awakening, he was so depressed that he looked himself in the mirror and he said, I can't live with myself anymore. And then he said, wait, I can't live with myself anymore, meaning there's two people within me, or the idea that maybe I want something but myself doesn't. So what is this other thing in my head? So I started doing more research, and the reason that people are still latched onto their religious or spiritual beliefs is because we have no empirical evidence or proof that consciousness is created within the brain. Now, some people believe that in the next couple decades or centuries, that we will learn that consciousness is this formulation of gray matter that is just completely random, and it is a way that we have adapted as a human race, and it is a step in evolution. Or us spiritual people believe that maybe it is some type of higher power driving some type of simulation or system. And I don't want to go on my tangent for what I believe our simulation that we're living in is. I think that is what our next video is going to be on. But it's just this idea that you can be spiritual because we don't know what is creating these ideas. And the idea of spirituality is learning to live with yourself. So I can live with myself and I can love myself, instead of blindly following this religion that isn't necessarily going to help me because it is not adapted to my life nor my environment around me. We do know that many things can be taken from religion. But again, this idea that there are so many religions, and with the integration of technology and social media and education, we can learn from all these different religions. We don't have to say that because I am Jewish, I only believe in Jewish practices. It doesn't need to be like that anymore. We don't need to be so attached to these ideas. We can open our minds. We can say, this idea from Christianity is really good and I really like it. I can incorporate it and adopt it into my life. This idea from Judaism, this idea from Hinduism, and so on. There are also certain things in religion that are seen as either bad or not practiced that we know for fact will improve your well-being and will improve your life and will help you love your neighbor and be nice to everyone and be accepting of everyone. And ultimately, is the goal of religion is to love everyone, to love yourself, to have faith in the universe. One of which is meditation. We know for fact, we have evidence to show that those of which meditate have decreased anxiety, depression, are more loving, are more kind, are more accepting. Yet some people will not do it because they think it is this kind of religious thing. And again, it comes down to the taboo. Another thing that we wanted to say is there is no right religion. There is no right spiritual practice. It's just finding a way to adopt it into your life. So Ethan and I are going to release at least 2 videos a week about different philosophies or religion philosophies and talk about how we have adopted these ideas into a more modern society and how you can integrate them into your lifestyle, and a lot of which we will be using facts and stuff that will really make sense to everyone. Even if you really do have this strong religious belief, I guarantee if you listen to us talk and explain this, then you're going to agree with us a lot more than you think. So I implore all of you to open up your mind and to listen. We're also right now currently writing a book that is supposed to be 366 meditations, very similar to how the Daily Stoic is written, if anyone knows about that. And it's either meditations or principles taken from different philosophers or religious leaders or just any leader, and ideas that are more that just make more sense, that can fit into your lifestyle, that aren't 2,000 years old, that are current, that understand the things that are happening right now with the pandemic, with the increase in social media and how that affects our minds, with the idea that you no longer can only be around this certain town and that you need to take a boat to travel to other countries. No, times have changed. Religion should be dynamic. Spirituality is alive and religion is dead. Thank you guys very much and hope you guys enjoyed.